Hey YouTubers, it's Charlie. So this is going to be a bonus Game of Thrones video about what they might do after Season 7. They just made a whole bunch of comments about going beyond 10 years. That doesn't necessarily mean that we'll get Game of Thrones Season 10. So this will be a breakdown of the storylines they could do as well as like what George R. R. Martin had to say about it. So if you didn't see it, there was an interview with the president of HBO programming, the person who's responsible for buying new shows. He said, "We would love to go beyond 10 years with Game of Thrones. As of right now, the actors are only confirmed through season 6. Like there's only a contract with HBO through season 6. There have been a lot of HBO shows that have run for a long time. 7 seems like the magic number, even for unsuccessful series. So I don't think that it's going to be a problem getting to season 7. There's too much material to wrap it up in 6 seasons. They're already skipping so much stuff." What's probably going to end up happening is the producers, Dan and Dave, as well as the actors, will not want to go beyond season 7. So here's a breakdown of like likely outcomes in this situation where you have like a whole bunch of material, but a limited amount of time to get it out. So, most likely what's going to happen is we'll get season 7 and they'll wrap the series up, for the most part, and have to cut out a whole bunch of stuff. Like they'll cut out a lot of stuff. Moving down the list a little bit, season 8, slightly less likely. I would put it at like 60% chance that they'll do a season 8 to wrap things up. As for the odds of a movie, George R. R. Martin himself said that, yes, it'd be great to do a movie, but the president of HBO said that he wasn't really hot on the idea just because HBO is driven by television subscribers. Even if they aired the movie on HBO, you'd be paying a full month's subscription fee for 2 hours of programming out of the 4 weeks of programming you would normally get. So just as a cost-benefit analysis, the executives at HBO feels like there's better value in not doing a movie. That doesn't mean they won't ever do theatrical stuff again. Regardless of what happens with the show, they'll probably do IMAX screenings again. I think they were really successful financially. People really liked them, but what'll probably happen is they'll wait till after the episodes air on TV to do that. They're not going to throw subscribers under the bus. Subscribers are their first priority. So sidestep, what is the alternative? Starting a spinoff. That's probably what's going to end up happening. We'll get like 7 series of the main show, and then they'll do a prequel series as a spinoff. So we will get like 10, 15 years of Game of Thrones, or however many the spinoff runs for. But the other material beyond season 7 will not be part of A Song of Ice and Fire. It'll be like prequel stuff. Right now, that's what The Walking Dead is doing. Most popular TV show in the world. Walking Dead is like the only show that's more popular than Game of Thrones. Robert Kirkman and AMC want more Walking Dead. Like they make a ton of money on it, so they want as much as possible. But there's only so much they can do with the main cast. At a certain point, they'll run out of stories to tell. People just get tired. The actors will want to move on and do other projects, just like the Game of Thrones actors. Or they'll become too expensive to pay. Usually the big problem beyond season 7 is that you have to give the actors like astronomical raises, especially on really successful TV series. When you do a spinoff, you completely bypass that problem. You can bring in total unknowns. You already have brand awareness, so it costs way less. It's way easier to produce. And you already have the built-in audience from the main show. It's really an embarrassment of riches in terms of like A Song of Ice and Fire prequel material for them to pick from. But I feel like there are 2 really likely candidates. There's the Tales of Dunk and Egg, and then there's the Targaryen Civil War. Of the 2 of those, I feel like the most likely candidate is just the Tales of Dunk and Egg, just because Martin spent a lot more time developing that storyline. And he said that beyond the 3 novellas that he's done, he will write new material, but right now he's working on Winds of Winter, as everyone is yelling at him. So it's probably going to be a long time before there's new Dunk and Egg stuff. The really funny thing about canonical material outside of A Song of Ice and Fire is that like every time George R. R. Martin does a new public appearance, he talks about doing other storylines that don't have to do with the main novels. It's so funny. So he's always announcing new material. He'll be writing new stories until he's dead in the grave. It'll be a Tolkien situation where his heirs will have to finish his material based on notes that he's left. Like there's just way too much stuff for him to finish in his lifetime. I know some of you are asking, why don't they do a series about ancient Valyria? Why don't they do a series about Aegon's conquest? I think the answer is that some stuff just works better in flashback when you just get like brief looks at it. Those are 2 really good examples of storylines that will require heavy digital effects because you have lots of dragons, lots of really big battles, and lots of big ecological destruction a la Doom of Valyria. Even if you don't do the Doom of Valyria, there were so many dragons, you couldn't throw a stone without hitting a dragon in ancient Valyria. Think about how much they would have to spend on digital effects. So Dunk and Egg, just a better choice. Just way less special effects required. Much easier to produce. Some of you guys are probably asking, what the hell is Dunk and Egg? You probably heard the names before, you probably heard them referred to, but you may not have read the short stories or the novellas. So Dunk refers to Sir Duncan the Tall, that's this guy right here, and Egg refers to Aegon Targaryen V. The individual novels that their stories are in are out of print right now, but this fall in October, George R. Martin is collecting a new edition with some new artwork, just like he did with World of Ice and Fire last year. The difference is that the Tales of Dunk and Egg is all George R. R. Martin's writings. World of Ice and Fire, I know a lot of people were upset because it was just a collaboration. He only wrote part of it. It was still a fun book, but for those that just want to read stuff that George R. R. Martin has wrote, Tales of Dunk and Egg is much better. Their adventures mostly covered this period of time before Aegon had become the king and Sir Duncan had become part of his Kingsguard. Here's a quick breakdown on how that storyline gets started, so just careful for spoilers if you don't want to know anything about Dunk and Egg. The series picks up when Duncan is only a squire, hoping to become a knight. The knight that he's serving under is nicknamed the Hedge Knight. He dies while he and Dunk are on their way to a tournament in Ashford. Duncan seizes the opportunity to become a knight much faster. Normally it takes a long time to become a knight. So he takes the Hedge Knight's armor and gives himself the name Sir Duncan the Tall, saying that the Hedge Knight knighted him right before he died. The problem when he gets to the tournament at Ashford is that no one believes him. Nobody remembers the Hedge Knight, except for one of the Targaryen princes, Prince Baelor. He agrees to let Sir Duncan fight in the tournament. So he's bluffing his way into the tournament, and he's kind of on shaky ground. He stays at an inn, and it just so happens that a young Targaryen prince named Egg, nicknamed Egg, is staying there. So Egg, or Aegon V, however you want to think about him, is like so far down the line of succession that he doesn't even care about becoming king. He wants to become a knight so that he can become a Kingsguard someday. Most of his family thinks this is blasphemous, and he has several siblings. He has an older brother that's kind of like Joffrey, total dickhead, way further up the line of succession than him. Even his father, Prince Maekor I, is still a prince. You have to remember that, like, at this time in history, they're just lousy with Targaryens. There are Targaryens everywhere. Like, each one of them has like 1 billion kids. Because Egg is staying at the same inn as Sir Duncan, he seizes the opportunity to try and become Sir Duncan's squire. He begs him, he's like, please let me be your squire. But he doesn't tell him that he's a Targaryen prince. He just lies about his identity. It says his name's Egg. Duncan agrees, but then later, in this kind of misguided act of chivalry, Duncan ends up in a trial by combat with Egg's older brother, Aerion Targaryen. Here's where things get really cool. So, Aerion challenges Dunk to a trial by combat, but not just any trial by combat, not like Oberyn Martell versus the Mountain. He challenges him to a trial by 7. Trial by 7 is a 7-on-7 trial by combat where 7 knights face 7 other knights, all seated on horseback. You can pick whatever weapon you want to use. Usually it's lances though, because you're on horseback. Dunk is able to win, but in a series of unfortunate events, a whole bunch of really important people die, including Baelor Targaryen, Egg's uncle. Egg's father, Prince Maekor, says that, you know, because he won, he can become part of his personal guard. Dunk refuses, says, I just want to be a knight, and Egg's father agrees to let Duncan squire Egg, who at this time had revealed himself as Aegon V, but he's still way down in the line of succession, so he thinks he has 0 chance of becoming king. The rest of these 3 stories just go on to tell their adventures after that. And, deal with a couple really big important events in Westeros. So there's a lot of really big stuff happening outside of what's going on with Dunk and Egg. So it's pretty exciting. It's a really good story. There's just enough battles for them to do some really cool action set pieces. It's like a Song of Ice and Fire if it were told from the perspective of Brienne or Jaime Lannister. So you get a much deeper dive into the line of succession inside the Targaryens, as well as what knighthood is like. It's just a lot of fun. I know I said it's a little less likely that they might do Dance of the Dragons or, the Targaryen Civil War. The reason that would be really cool to do is because it gives you a much deeper dive into dragon lore. Like, what is involved in riding dragons? How does that work? That series of short stories really explores that. So it's way more dragon heavy, and it's within about 200 years of the main series, so it's not super far removed, as opposed to like Ancient Valyria. Here's my big question for you guys. If they do a prequel series, what would you rather them do? Would you rather them do Dunk and Egg, or would you rather them do Targaryen Civil War, or do you want to see something else? As of right now, George R. R. Martin has an option to do a prequel series. As far as I know, there hasn't been any development along those lines. But he said, like, after the second episode, they started discussing prequel series. Like, literally after the second episode, George R. R. Martin had a lunch with one of the top people at HBO, and he was like, we want 10 years of Game of Thrones. And George R. R. Martin's like, that sounds great. I would love that. So, most likely scenario, 7 seasons in the main show, and then a prequel series would start, around, the time season 6 or season 7 starts. If they were going to start a spin-off series and they wanted to get it out by the start of like season 6 or sometime, around 2016, they'd really have to get going fast. So I think it's more likely that it would start around season 7. If they were actively developing a spin-off right now, which I don't think that they are, I think they already would have announced some stuff. As of right now, they're just worrying about the main show. My next bonus video is probably going to be like a straight up Daenerys video for season 5, so be sure to subscribe to get that. I might get that out by Sunday, at least by next week. If you guys really want, I'll do a deeper video on Dunk and Egg. There's so much material there. It's really interesting. Speaking of which, congrats to this week's giveaway winner, Bidis. You win a copy of the Season 4 DVD. Be sure to message me on the back end of my channel so I can get your contact info. For those that are asking about the HBO streaming service, HBO Now, we have some more information about that. What's going to happen is it's exclusive to Apple, meaning that you have to have a US App Store account or iTunes account, but essentially the same thing. That doesn't mean you have to live in the US to use it. It just means you need to be able to buy things through the United States Apple Store on a mobile device. People in international countries, there are a couple workarounds to do this. So you can still use HBO Now, but you have to buy the HBO Now service through the App Store, and it has to be the US App Store. I know that sounds a little bit weird, but like Sky and other international broadcasters have exclusive digital rights to Game of Thrones in country. So like if you don't have HBO Now in your country, it's because your broadcaster doesn't want you to have it, not because HBO doesn't want you to have it. So don't yell at HBO. Personally, if you are in a foreign country and you really want HBO Now, I just recommend that you try the workaround. Starting at the beginning of April, I'm still going to be giving away subscriptions. If you aren't in an international country, it'll probably just be PayPal, so you can try and find a workaround if you want. So you can still win giveaways in international countries, so don't worry about that. So while you guys wait for that Daenerys video, you can click here for my breakdown of the second trailer, way cooler than the first trailer. And you can click here for my breakdown or my synopsis of the first 3 episodes. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys tonight. Now let's all do the thing.